The President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. Next, we would like to hand over to counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chia to continue putting questions to the witness.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I have a few more questions for you today. This morning, you testified about the military structure of Division 801. My question to you is, did this military structure exist also in April 1975?
Response: yes, it did.
And this morning you testified about reporting relationships around O Conseng. Did these exist in April 1975? Do you know?
Response: no, it didn't. Because I was not yet in charge of the place.
And did any of the command structures at Division 801 or O Conseng, which you described this morning, exist in April 1975?
Response: in 1975, such a system was not yet in place. The President, International Co-Prosecutor, you may now proceed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe that these questions are not relevant because they include errors. The witness always said that he traveled to the northeast zone only at the end of 1975 and that he had been assigned as the head of O Conseng at the end of 1976 only. So any question linked to April 75 is not, chronologically speaking, relevant. So may the defense put questions that are meaningful and that correspond to what the witness has already said. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, in answering the objection of the prosecutor, our point is to try to establish whether these military structures or reporting relationships or command structures actually existed in April 75. So that's why we're asking questions in this respect to the witness. So I think if they didn't exist, then the witness can and will answer in such a way. So I think these questions are relevant.
The President, you may proceed, counsel. You can continue putting the question. The co-prosecutor did not appear to be objecting to the question, but he wished that you put the question relevant to the time when the witness was in charge of the O Conseng Center.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, again, my question was whether in April 1975, whether you know whether command structures at Division 801 or at Okonseng, which you described this morning, existed.
Response. In 1975, 801 structure was in place, but as I told you, by 1975 the structure at Okonsang was not yet in place.
Thank you. Mr. Witness, you talked this morning about plans from the upper level which were disseminated to the lower level. Now, when you used these terms this morning, what did you mean with upper level?
Response. Upper levels refer to senior authorities. For example, we have the battalion, the regiment, the brigade and division. So people who belong to these different levels are regarded as upper levels.
Did you ever actually receive instructions from Nguyen Chia or from any other leaders other than Sao Sarun?
Response. No, I didn't. Apart from Sao Sarun, I did not receive any other instruction or orders.
So is it then correct when I say that when you use the words upper echelon, this doesn't imply command structures above Sao Sarun, correct?
Response. Yes, it is.
This morning, Mr. Witness, you stated that at meetings with Sao Sarun, many issues with Vietnam in regard to border issues or national sovereignty were often discussed. Could you tell what specifically these many issues with Vietnam in fact were?
Response. I am afraid I cannot answer this question because I cannot recollect very well what happened a very long time ago, and there is no document I can also refer to describe it in detail.
Additionally, Mr. Witness, at these same meetings with Sao Sarun, you stated this morning that you often had discussions regarding problems with internal and external sabotage. Could you elaborate on that? What types of sabotage were you referring to? What did you mean when you said that?
Response. I can neither explain this to you because my memory is not as good as it used to be.
I appreciate that, Mr. Withers. These events have taken place a long time ago, but you did use the word sabotage. One could say that this implies specific knowledge of certain events. Could you try go back into your memory and try to explain to us what you meant when you used the word sabotage?
Response. I cannot recollect the event. I'm afraid I cannot do that.
Mr. President, I have no further questions.
The President, thank you. National Co-Counsel for Mr. Noor. Here, you may now proceed. Counsel Son Arun. Good afternoon, Mr. President and Your Honors, and good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I have a few remaining questions, and I will be very brief. You testified on the 11th of January 2013 that when you joined the revolution in Takao, the Vietnamese troops did not exist as yet. But in 1970 and 1971, you were joined by the Vietnamese troops. Can you tell the chamber, please, were these Vietnamese troops from Hanoi or Viet Cong or the South Vietnam? Response. After 18th of March, I joined the army, the North Vietnamese soldiers or the Viet Cong. And we were not joined by the South Vietnamese soldiers. That happened in 1970. Counsel, thank you. You testified that you joined the revolution in 1970 after you were convinced by the appeal by then Prince Norodom Sihanouk. Before you had joined the Revolutionary Army in 1970, what was your life like? Response. Before I joined the army, I lived as a poor peasant. My life was as moderate as the other peasants. Counsel, thank you. Before 1975, you was in charge of the company supervising about 100 soldiers. That was in your testimony in January 2013. I now would like to ask you to describe in detail the structure of the company or the army you supervise. Response. I again cannot tell you in detail concerning the command structure or administrative structure of the military because I cannot recollect every detail of this. Question. I am asking this because I would like to know from you as the head of the company. Indeed, above the company, there was a battalion. Is that correct? And who would be the heads of each higher up division or rather section? Response. You're talking about the hierarchy command structure. During 1971, 72 and 73, the top level was only the battalion. But after 1973 to 1974, there was a regiment. And then after 1975, the division existed. And I don't recollect all the names of the commanders of each unit, or company, or battalion, or regiment because people came and went. There were changes, there were reshuffle of the command posts. Council, thank you. In 1970 and 1971, in your testimony, you stated that you cooperated with the Vietnamese troops. And you worked under Division 801 under command of So Sarun. Can you tell the chamber in which battles had you engaged? Response. I think I may need to talk at length about this. In the southwest zone, there was a regiment that was engaged in battlefields. And then there was a regiment 152. And then by 1975, we were joined by Division 14 and other forces to engage in the battlefields. So I can see that I had engaged in several battlefields, and it is difficult for me to precisely say which battlefield I was engaged. Question. Under document E3/405 on question number 1, I would read this statement to you. You said that first, You work at Prabat Ong Chum in Takao. Later on, you were sent to Chuk district of Kampot to join force with the North Vietnamese troops. And at that time, you worked as an ordinary soldier, and that you had to join the North Vietnamese troop to fight against the South Vietnamese in the vicinity of Nha Rie in Chuk district. And there was bombing by the South Vietnamese at that time. Later, we assembled forces at Srai Chang on the Kampot province border and divided the forces into two groups. They had those of large build attack into Kampong Speu city, and they had those of smaller build like myself go cooperate with the Vietnamese army at a Vietnamese military headquarters inside Vietnamese territory. My question to you is, why were you assigned to work in Vietnam? Did you go there on a study session? Response. In short, the reason I said I went to Vietnam, I think it was not properly quoted. I studied Vietnamese. I did not go to Vietnam to study anything. I had to learn the language so that we could communicate with the Vietnamese. And that's all. However, the other account in this statement is truthful. Question. So you take issue with the final statement which I just read out to you, that you did not go to Vietnam. So is that my understanding, or is it correct that you did not enter Vietnam? Response. Yes, it is correct. I studied in Cambodia, not in Vietnam. Counsel, thank you. Question. Before you attacked Phnom Penh, you was the commander of a regiment. Is that correct? Response. I was the deputy head. Counsel, thank you. As the deputy commander of the regiment under Division 801, as what you stated. However, your testimony this morning before the co-prosecutor and the counsels for the civil parties, you talked about the command structure from upper levels to the lower levels. You appear to have known a lot about this from division to the platoon level. How did you know about this? Did you acquire such knowledge through study sessions, or you heard this through grapevine? Response. I learned about this through study sessions. Question. After you had entered Phnom Penh, what title did you have or hold? Response. It was in the same year, so I was not promoted to another new position. I had to be on training to continue studying so that I could control the troops. Question. You testified that before any attack was carried out, upper echelon would deliver the plan to you and other commanders. Can you please be more precise as to whether in such orders you and other soldiers were forced or were instructed to shoot Lone Nol soldiers, or how you should treat them, for example? Response. I don't remember this quite well. However, enemies who were stubborn would be warned. Nonetheless, they could never be executed arbitrarily. In the battlefields, indeed, we engaged in fighting, and hostility could always happen because we exchanged fires, and people on both sides would get injured. However, we did not arbitrarily treat other side in the battlefield, and we had to properly implement the plan, and we had to withdraw the troops after we won the battlefield. Question. As the head of the regiment, did you have to face a situation when you had to kill people? Response. Yes, I did. Because in a situation when we engaged in a serious and fierce fighting, it was time when we had to engage in this self-defense measure, and we had to be very committed to ensure that we would be safe. Question. If you say it like that, I may go back a little bit to another point. Before you had to carry out the plan to attack Phnom Penh, and as the head of the regiment, were you resisted, or were you severely or strongly resisted by the Lone Nol soldiers, and did you have to use forces to overcome this kind of resistance? Response. In the city, the fighting was really fierce. Nonetheless, we could not really fire at people without thinking very carefully about our strategic plan to attack and liberate Phnom Penh. We had come all the way through Pochentong Channel and we planned this carefully. Question: until when the fighting ceased, and until when your troops withdrew? Response: I don't remember the detail, but I think by the 16th of April, the situation was more pleasant than the previous few days, and then we could easily move into the city.
Council, thank you. When So Sarun came back from Phnom Penh, sorry, I get confused. With regards to the instruction from the upper echelon, and when you got into Phnom Penh, the fighting got pleasant. Did you receive any order to evacuate the civilian from the city in the area under your supervision in your capacity as the deputy commander of the company? Answer: yes. This happened in all the battlefield. After we liberated the civilian, the people had to move out for a period in order to guarantee the security. However, with regards to the city, we have to be more careful. In some situations, our troops may be in danger. So after we go in, we stay over there for a while and then we have to move out. We cannot stay over there. This is our measure. Council, thank you. Right now, I would like to ask about the time when you were in charge of the re-education center in Organ Sain. You were in charge of the district re-education center in Organ Sain. Is it correct? Answer: I cannot hear clearly. Council, there were educational center for the district, for the province. There were hierarchy. It was the education. You were the chief of Organ Sain Education Center. I would like to ask you whether it was the commune or the district. Answer: that was for the division. The compound was located in the district. Right now it was called Ban Sue district. Right now it was called Ban Lung district. Council, thank you. You testified that in that center you were overall in charge of the center. Did you question or interrogate the accused directly? Did you question them by yourself, or other people were in charge of asking questions? Answer:
the other experts were in charge of questioning the detainees. They had their own techniques. So this is the working principle. Sometimes I also participate because I want to get more information about that. Council, at that correction center in Okansai, before questioning the detainees, did they use any torture? Did they beat the detainees in order to get the confessions? Answer. There were techniques. At first, we could not force, we could not torture and question the detainee because the answer would not be correct. So first, we have to ask them repeatedly in order to identify the tactics or the strategies of the detainees. Later on, we invite them, we ask them again and again, and if they do not tell us, we may do it. But of course, it is not beyond the limitation. Council, with regards to the detainees who were stubborn, and you got the information saying that those detainees were cruel, did you ever kill detainees? The President, the Council, you may proceed. Council, Mr. President, this question may incriminate against the witness. The President, you may proceed. I would like to remind the lawyer that the security center in Okansai is not the main focus of the hearing. We limit to the structure and the working communication only. So we have to distinguish between the question relevant to the proceeding and the question which are not relevant to the proceeding. Council, thank you, Mr. President. The President, Mr. Witness, do you answer that question or you deserve your right not to answer that question? Mr. Witness, I would like not to answer that question. The President, the Council, you may proceed. Council, thank you, Mr. President. At the re-education center in Okansai, you were the chief of the center, but you were under Division 801. Is it correct?
បាទ 801 ពិតប្រាកដ
Answer: Yes, it is. Counsel, you have testified that you have talked about the revolutionary flag. You said that those who were members of the party would receive the revolutionary flag. At the time, were you members of the party and did you receive the revolutionary flag yet?
បាទសម័យក្នុងកំឡុង3ឆ្នាំនេះខ្ញុំបានមិនទាន់ពេញសិទ្ធិជាបេក្ខជនទេបាទ
Answer: During that period, I was not a full right member yet.
បាទដូច្នោះលោកមិនបានទទួល
Counsel, so you mean that you did not receive the revolutionary flag? You have not read the revolutionary flag and you have not seen that. Is it correct?
មិនបានអានបាទ
Answer: Of course, I did not read, but I used to see it.
កលៈទេសៈខ្លះ
In some occasion,
ដឹងពីដំណើរនៃទង់បដិវត្តន៍ដែរ
because I also want to know about the development, about the contents of revolutionary flag as well. Counsel, I would like you to clarify. You said that you have not read, but you have seen it, and then you state that you want to know about the content. So, how can you know about the content when you see the flag only?
បាទ មូលហេតុថាដែលថាមិនដឹងពីព្រោះវា
Answer:
បានទទួលអាទង់ពីរដែរ
I have received 2 issues of
របស់សម្ព័ន្ធយុវជន
revolutionary flag,
ដូច្នេះអាចឈានទិសដៅទៅមុខទៀតនឹងបានចូលជាបេក្ខជនបាទនៅ
and
ទង់ណែ
in the future I would become the member of the party.
មានទៅមុខហ្នឹងដូច្នេះមានលក្ខណៈខ្លះក៏គេបានបើកវគ្គសិក្សាដែរ
Sometimes there were study sessions
យ៉ាងម៉េច
so that we can move forward.
អញ្ចឹងបុគ្គល
We know
ផ្ទាល់ខ្លួនបាទក៏មានឆន្ទៈតស៊ូដែរដើម្បីឲ្យដំណើរជីវិតដែរ
I had the commitment to move forward.
វាមានទិសដៅ
I had the clear direction for my future. Counsel, I do not have any further question. Thank you.
បាទអរគុណ
The President, thank you. Right now, I would like to give the floor to the counsel for Mr. Kyo Sampon to put question to the witness.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I believe that I will be the only one of Mr. Kyo Sompon's co-lawyers to put questions to Mr. Chomsei. Sir, good afternoon. My first question is very straightforward. Did you indicate what your age is?
And my name is Chomsei. I am 63 years old.
What is your date of birth, if you know it?
បាទថ្ងៃ15 ខែ9 ឆ្នាំ 1950
I was born on the 15th of September 1950.
Je vous pose
I ask you that question because I noticed a minor detail on the written records of your interviews with the investigators of this tribunal. When you were interviewed on 3 separate occasions in 2009, well, at the start of the first meeting, you stated that you were 49 years of age. Yet, if we are to rely on the date of birth that you have just provided us, you were not 49 years of age, but 59. So how do you explain this 10-year difference in your age? Did you reread your testimony that you had signed off on previously?
Yes, I have read, and I said 59 years old because that was in 1999. But the writer wrote 49. I got confused between number 4 and number 5. I did not tell any lie. So if I want to tell lie, I could have changed my name.
Je ne cherche pas à vous accuser du tout.
Sir, I'm not accusing you of lying. Not at all. That was not my question. My question simply was, did you have a chance, or did you read your testimony before you provided your signature? Because there are 3 occurrences where your age is indicated as 49 years of age, and 3 occurrences where you have signed off on that detail. Therefore, did you have a chance to reread the document that you ultimately signed?
I did not pay attention to that. I read the written record and then it looked appropriate, but of course I did not examine my age at the time.
En 1970,
In 1970, you joined the revolution. You mentioned this to the chamber several times, and when my learned friend across the way asked you a few questions on what you did before you joined the revolution, you stated that you were a farmer, that you were a peasant. I would ask for further details. Can you please tell us if before you joined the revolution, if you were able to pursue any studies and up to what level? Did you attend school, for example?
At the time, I attended school for around 5 years. I finished grade 7 and moved into grade 8 in the primary school.
à quel âge aviez-vous quitté?
And at what age did you leave school?
I stopped studying in 1962-63.
Et c'est à l'école
And was it at school where you learned to read and to write?
I learned how to write and read based on that and by my own self as well.
par vous-même
On your own? How did you go about it?
លោកចង់ការបំពេញវិជ្ជាចង់ដឹងអំពីការបំពេញវិជ្ជាដោយខ្លួនឯងនេះវារៀនតាមវចនានុក្រមអក្សរពាក្យខ្លះដូច
I learned through dictionaries.
អក្សរតិចបាទនៃវាមិនតាន់បានជ្រាលជ្រៅជំរឿនដូច្នេះខ្ញុំបាទធ្វើការតស៊ូបដៅរៀន
So I joined the struggle and I started myself because I was a commander. I started it from the low-ranking official.
Alors justement,
And that is exactly the issue that I wanted to address. Before you joined the revolution, and in fact, before you became a member of the Revolutionary Army of Kampuchea, did you undergo any military training?
No, I did not attend any military training. However, after joining the revolution, I got some training.
lorsque l'on étudie
When we go over your statements with respect to the revolution, one sees that in 1970, at the age of 20, you joined the revolution. And in 1971, 1 year later, you were appointed chief of a military unit, and you stated that you led men into battle. So during that year, between 1970 and 1971, did you receive any specific or particular military training to have been chosen as a military superior, a military high-ranking or mid-ranking official? How was it that you were selected to be promoted?
In order to save time, I cannot answer this question. Sorry.
est-ce que la réponse
Is the answer that you could potentially provide to that answer likely to incriminate you? Is that the reason why you are unable to answer my question?
I do not want to describe the period before I was given any assignment. That person must have good characteristic or have good strength. So if that person is not a good person, is not committed to attack, to struggle, that person would not be given any position.
est-ce que
is your inclination to not go over the reasons why you were selected stem from a certain sense of personal humility? Or is it something else? I don't entirely understand why you refuse to answer a question that is rather simple. Is it because you don't want to boast on your own merits or qualities and achievements?
You link to that issue, that may be correct. The President, Mr. Chamsai, I would like to remind you about your duty and responsibility as a witness. I predict that there might be such a situation during the proceeding. So before the hearing, I told you about your responsibility and duties already. In your capacity as a witness, you have to answer the question put by any parties or the judges. So this is your responsibility, your duty. And with regard to the second duty, you have to tell the truth. Something that you have seen, something that you have experienced, or something that you have observed. So you have to answer all the questions, except when there is any objection from the other party. So if the objection is admissible, the chamber will tell you not to answer the question. So in that case, we will conduct the deliberation and then we will tell you not to answer that question. You can consult your counsel, and if you believe that that question may incriminate against you, you can use your right not to answer the question. So I would like you to concentrate and answer the question put by the party. So this is for the purpose of ascertaining the truth. So this is related to the value of your testimony previously. We want to assess whether what you said previously was reliable or not. Do you understand that? Of course, this morning I told you about this. So please concentrate and answer the question, except in some situation that I have told you before.
The President, Counsel, you may put your question again, the last question you asked, because it appears that he forgets the question.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Witness, can you please explain to the chamber what justifies the fact that barely after having joined the revolution for a year, you were promoted? What justifies that? Why were you selected to be promoted? Why were you selected to command several men and to lead them to battle?
just over a year of my service, then I was appointed to be a team leader, a unit leader. I told the court earlier on that this was based on my merit, based on the achievement I had made throughout my work. I knew how to address the challenges faced. I was a responsible person. I could handle the task that I was assigned to. For this reason, I was promoted to be a unit leader.
Thank you for that answer. And during that year, from the moment when you joined in 1971 and the moment when you were promoted, were you receiving any kind of technical military training, or were you just learning on the job?
Following my service in the military, I had the training on the job. On every year, I had to attend training and continued training on a regular basis.
My question focuses on the year that follows the year when you joined. So during that year, did you receive any kind of military training, any kind of training in terms of strategy or in terms of leading men? So I'm speaking about the period between 1970 and 1971.
During the period between 1970 and 1971, I did not receive any technical or specific training. In other words, I did not attend any particular training session. But after that, I did attend subsequent trainings given.
When you were in the Revolutionary Army, how many men did you command at most?
From 1970 to 1971, I was a team leader and I led a group of 12 people.
Et ensuite?
And then, up to how many men did you lead? Okay, 12 people at the beginning, but afterwards, how many?
Then in 1973, 1974, I was the commander of a platoon. Then I managed some 70 men at that time.
Continuez, je vous en prie.
Please continue.
1973, 1974, and 1975. Then I was promoted the deputy commander of a company, and I managed around 100 plus men, and we serve the army attached to the sector until we were mobilized to attack Phnom Penh.
And then, were you promoted further? And or did you remain at the same rank as deputy commander with about 100 men under your command before you changed locations?
Then I was transferred out of that military structure. Then I was appointed the chief of the department.
Alors, ne vous inquiétez pas.
So, well, what I received in French is not very clear. So before you became the head of a re-education center, up to how many maximum did you lead?
At that time, when I was the deputy commander of a company, I managed some 100 men. This was the number of people under my supervision.
And my question, in fact, is to know, so you never managed more than 100 men, as you're telling us now. Is that the case?
No.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, maybe should we take the break now, or?
The President, thank you. The time is now appropriate for a short break. The chamber will adjourn now until 3 o'clock this afternoon. Court officer is instructed to facilitate the waiting room for the witness and his duty counsel during the break and have them back to the courtroom before 3 o'clock. The court is now adjourned.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ